are back for another book recap. So it's August and I had a pretty good reading month for July. I'm very proud of myself. I got through 8 books, so let's go through them. So I started off on a strong note. I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. I read that on my Kindle, and it was just everything you expect out of Emily Henry. Just a cute rom-com book, leaves you with all the feels, and I had no complaints. Great book for the summer. I started that at the beginning of July. I gave it 4.25 stars. So Funny Story is about a girl, Daphne, who had moved, uprooted her life for her fiance in Michigan, and unfortunately he left her for his best friend, and she then moved in with the best friend's ex-boyfriend, and we're kind of going through the motions of her dealing with this breakup and wanting to move back home, but in the meantime she pretends that she's dating her roommate, the new fiance's ex-boyfriend, and they're kind of going around the town and kind of going through like bucket list items around the city. He grew up there, so he's kind of taking her through some new things that she never knew about the city. Meanwhile, she's working at a library preparing for a readathon, which I will say really took me back to my elementary school days when we had readathons. And yeah, they're getting to know each other, fake dating, she's meeting new friends, kind of coming into herself. And it's obviously a romance, so we're getting some of that romantic element, and I really just like the character journeys in this. Each character had quite a lot of depth, and so aside from the budding romance, they're kind of learning about things in their past that are maybe getting in the way of the person they are supposed to be. So I really liked it. The character development was great. The will they, won't they get together trope was also great. So like I said, 4.25 stars. It was a great one, a great summer read. Honestly, might be my favorite Emily Henry book to date. I haven't read her in a while, but I feel like this one's really sticking in my head. So take that as you will. So then I read Want. This is submitted by anonymous women all over the world from all different backgrounds, but it's collected by and published by Gillian Anderson and her team. And this was just something different for me, and I was very like drawn to the cover when I saw it at Waterstones. And it's about all of these different women's submitted fantasies. So it's categorized by like theme, sort of. And I wouldn't say read it cover to cover. I think it's one you just pick up here and there. And I thought it was really interesting hearing how imaginative people could get with their fantasies, but also how like ashamed people felt about their fantasies depending on how like weird or what their background like maybe religiously accepts or not. So I think it was super interesting. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because I don't think it's going to be for everyone. And like I said, it's not one to fly through, but it was a very, very interesting read. So if that kind of sounds interesting to you, I definitely recommend it. So yeah, Want. Then I went back into my fantasy realm, and I read Blood and Betrayals, which is a new book this year, I believe, and I believe it's also on Kindle Unlimited. If you're a romantasy person, this is definitely going to be for you. It's like a dark academia following Summer, who is a fae, and she goes to this university that's for a little bit older than a normal university. And we have a bunch of different species: vampires, fae, angels, sorcerers, etc. And they're all at this university, and Summer is really coming into herself. She's kind of has a lot of secrets from her past that she's keeping under, but she's also finding her newfound family. She's kind of learning how to be loved by people. Meanwhile, at the university, there's kind of murders happening that they're kind of trying to figure out like why it's happening, who's doing it. And this was really great, and it's spicy if you're into that. I will say for me personally, it was almost too much. So that's why I gave it 4 stars rather than 5. But I cried at the end, and I don't usually cry in books, but I was very shocked at the decision of the authors to do what they did, and it made me very, very excited for the next book in this series. I definitely recommend that if you like romantasy, fae, and like some murder mystery all encapsulated into one. So then I read The Writer's Retreat, and I fortunately got an arc of this one, so I got it before it was released, but it's now since been released, so it's available to you. And this is a mystery thriller, and we're following our FMC, who's an aspiring writer, and she goes to a writer's retreat in the Catskills, only to find out it's being run and attended by her ex-best friend, who's a narcissist crazy lady. And we kind of bounce between past and present to understand the context of their tumultuous relationship. And we also have murders happening that, again, we're just trying to figure out who's behind them. We're seeing this relationship possibly forge back together. It delivered on the mystery thriller bits that I am normally looking for. It was a quick rip through the pages read. I do think some bits were predictable, but I feel that way in most thrillers. But there were still some unexpected twists and turns, and just figuring out the story, how it came to be what it is, was very interesting. So if you're a mystery thriller person, I definitely think this is going to be a good one for you. And it's not too long. I think it was like 300 pages, so easy to get through. And that one I gave 4 stars as well. It delivered what I needed it to deliver as far as a thriller goes. I then read Wedding People, which I've seen all over the internet, and it's been on my TBR for quite some time, but I finally picked it up. And I'm not generally a literary fiction person, just because they're not super plot driven, and it's more about the character, it's more about the writing. But I really like this one. I gave this one 4 stars, and we're basically following the main character, Phoebe, who recently divorced, and she goes to Rhode Island to stay at the Cornwall Inn, but she's the only guest staying there that isn't part of this wedding party that's there an entire week. And we're just kind of going through her motions of, you know, the feelings of being a recently divorced woman whose husband cheated on her, and finding unexpected friendships in some of these people that are attending the wedding week, and really coming into herself and discovering who she is and will be now moving forward as a single woman, and what she's going to do with her life. I thought it was really nice. It is slower paced, so if you are looking for something a little more gripping and, like I said, plot driven, it might not be for you. But I just thought it was a very beautiful story, and the characters were quite funny, the way that they interacted with each other, and it just really gave you that sense of like being at a wedding or being at an event, people watching, and kind of making your own stories in your head about what's happening. So I really liked that. I thought it was really great. Also a really good summer read in my opinion. So I think if you're looking for a good book to finish up this summer, I think this is a good one. Then I moved on to Orbital, and this one was recommended to me, and it won the Booker Prize last year. And this, again, was something very different for me. This isn't, again, a very plot-driven book. It's a very immersive, lyrical, creative writing style book about space. We do follow 6 astronauts and cosmonauts in the orbiting space station over a 24-hour period, and we're basically just kind of in their heads, like hearing what they think about space, about being up there, what they're thinking about their families back home, their daily routines and stuff like that. But it just personally wasn't for me. Like I said, there wasn't any clear plot. It was just kind of a creative style novel, which I'm glad it was short, but it just didn't keep me super interested. If you do like that style of creative writing, very immersive space type book, then you might like this, but for me it just didn't hit home, so I only gave this one 3 stars, but I can appreciate the work that went into writing this so creatively about being in space. So I then read One Dark Window, which has also kind of been all over the internet and on like my For You page on TikTok. And this is a gothic fantasy, romantasy book. And we're basically in a city run by a king, and the city has for 500 years been infected with magic, drawing people into the wood, this mist that creates this infection that causes people to have magic and degenerate. And the only way to get rid of it is to collect this magical deck of cards that's kind of spread out a lot in the castle amongst people there, but you need to unite this deck in order to get rid of the magic. And so we're following the main character, Elspeth, who does have the illness, and she actually absorbed a person, magical being, from one of the cards. And so she kind of has like two personalities almost. And she's recruited by the king's nephew to help them because her magic is actually, she can see the cards through a light. So we're following their journey trying to do that, and to be honest, it wasn't as good as I thought. I think I had higher expectations than what it delivered for me. It was just a bit slow, not much happening. There was a romance element, but I feel like it was just all of a sudden, like, they're in love with each other. There was no will they, won't they, any yearning, any sort of build up to it. So that was a little bit disappointing, but by the end I was still interested in how the second book would continue since it was only a duology. So I did continue, and I have since finished that, but I won't give my thoughts other than the second one is definitely better than the first in my opinion. But I gave that one 3.75 stars. It was still a good read. I think a lot of people really do love it, and maybe I just wasn't in the headspace for it, but it was it was okay for me. And finally, I read Convenience Store Woman. This is a translated Japanese book, and I've been curious about trying more translated works since we went to visit Japan last year, and I had heard about this one and people were saying it was funny. I personally didn't really think it was very funny, but I did think it was a cute story. We're following Kaiko, and she has worked in a convenience store in Japan for years, and she's just a little bit different. She doesn't really have much of an identity herself. She kind of is a chameleon and really takes on she kind of only sees herself as a convenience store worker, and when she's talking, dressing, she exclusively takes after her fellow employees. And so she's kind of searching for her own identity outside of that and the societal pressures in Japan of what she should be, what type of job, getting married, having kids, all that sort of stuff. So I did think it was like a cute, heartfelt story, but it's not going to be for everyone. So I did give this one 3.5 stars. I would only recommend it to like a very select few people, but again, it's a short one, so it was an easy breezy read. So that concludes my July reads, 8 books. Very happy about that. And I have a really good lineup for August, so I'm very excited, and I'm hopeful that they're all pretty good. Hopefully at least 4 stars and up, but we shall see. So let me know if you've read any of these books and what you're planning to read in August. If you want more bookish content, I did recently start a TikTok that is pretty much exclusively book related, but with some like little lifestyle snippets in there as well. But anyway, that is all for today, and I will see you in another video very soon.